Hi, Ms. Design here. I am going to go ahead and introduce to you your science inquiry project. This will give you kind of an overview of what's involved with the project. That way you can use this as a way to refer back to what you need to do in order to get the best grade possible for this project. First thing you should know is that this project can be done individually or with one other person. However, it is important to know that whoever you choose to be with for this project, you need to have your parents' permission to work with that other person for the sake of COVID reasons. So it needs to be something that you're comfortable with, that your family's comfortable with, because there might be times when you guys are interacting in close proximity with each other. I would prefer that you would do this individually, but if you have a means of getting together outside of school and with your parents' permission, then as long as they're okay with it, I am okay with it too. Um, you can do this project with somebody in your own class, or you can do it with somebody that is in one of my other eighth grade science classes. Again, with parents' permission, you would have to get together on your own times at somebody's house in order to do the project. Okay. With that being said, let me go ahead and introduce your science inquiry project. It is located right here in Schoology, is known as your science inquiry project. When you click on it and open it up, you'll notice this is where your video instructions are. Hopefully you got that. You'll read the requirements for the project right here where it says Science Inquiry Project Guidelines. When it's time for you to submit during certain parts of the project, you'll submit it here into Schoology. If you are working with a partner, I only want the same person each time submitting. So designate between you and your other person that you're working with who will always be the one in charge of submitting in Schoology. I can't have two different people submitting two different things because then I don't know which one is more up to date in grading. Also keep in mind when you're choosing partners, it should be somebody who you can trust to work with and will do their fair share of work. Also, keep in mind absences could become a problem if you are hit with COVID, or if your friend is hit with COVID, you are still responsible for your part of the project. You will just have to individually work on the rest of the project if that person isn't able to come back and work with you. Okay, so let me go ahead and go through the science inquiry project guidelines. So the first part of the project is going to be due next Wednesday, October the 7th. What you and your partner would do, or you by yourself, is that you are going to brainstorm some questions that you would like to investigate. We've done projects like this before in the past where I've given you kind of like some boundaries. Like last year we did product testing project with like paper towels and napkins and toilet paper. Well, in this particular project, you get to choose whatever you want to investigate on. I have placed suggestions for you in Schoology. There is a link in Schoology on project ideas. When you go into it, there might be some things that kind of spark your brain in terms of what you can and can't do. Okay, couple things that you need to keep in mind. One, if it has to do with any chemicals, okay, you have to make sure you abide by the labels on the bottles. Okay. Number two, you cannot do any type of experimentation that requires the use of humans in harming humans. Okay, no human testing. Um, you also cannot do anything that has to do with the scientific investigation of people's interests. Like, for instance, you can't do one that's like, do people like Coke better than Pepsi? Or do people like Honey Nut Cheerios versus plain Cheerios? Okay. Nothing that has to do with people's interest, or another good example, do they like basketball or football better? Nothing like that. So that's why if you go to the website here, it says 8th grade science fair project ideas. These are great ideas that people have used and have worked in the past, and they are very much 8th grade friendly. The other thing you need to think about is also time. Okay, there is a very, very limited amount of time in doing this. So I have had kids in the past do an experiment that has to do with growing plants. It is completely doable. in the time that you're given. However, because it is fall season right now, you might struggle in finding some plants that would be able to grow in a short period of time. Basically, the end of this project is going to be the second week of November. So you have to think about it. Will you be able to do a project within that reasonable amount of time? Okay. Mold is something you can definitely do in that short period of time. Just keep in mind, if you're going to grow mold, it has to be in an area that's away from other people or animals that could get a hold of it. You also have to keep in mind that whatever question you come up with or investigation that you do, you have to be able to access the materials, because I am not providing any of the materials. So if it has to do with timing something or measuring something, make sure you have meter sticks, make sure you have stopwatchers. If you're doing something like, for instance, how accurately do egg producers measure eggs? You have to be able to access an egg producer and access to eggs. Okay. Are all potato chips equally greasy? You have to be able to access the potato chips and figure out a way to test that and get the materials that you need in order to do that. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of things that you could do. Again, this website is a great one for coming up with ideas. You don't have to use one off this site, but this is a starter. You also, again, cannot do any type of experimentation that causes any animal harm, whether it's humans or amphibians or reptiles or any of that sort. No harm to living things when it comes to these experiments. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually come up with 2 questions, okay? You're going to put your 2 favorite questions in the comments section. I'm sorry, not the comments section, but you'll message it to me. I know on here it says index card. I'm going to change that right now. You're going to type them in the comments. You're going to send them to me in Schoology. So you will choose your 2 favorite questions, and then you will send Miss Dizon a message with these questions and your name and your partner's name. You're also going to put a star next to your favorite question. The question that you investigate should include a comparison of 2 factors, like a cause and effect. It has to be a testable question. For instance, a non-testable question would be, do butterflies like the day or the night? Fortunately, you have no way of actually being able to test that, okay? Easy way, set up your questions with the if and then type, or what happens if, or can A. Make sure you put a question mark on the end of these. If I like one of your questions, I will approve you for one of the 2 questions, and then from there you can move on to part 2. So part 1 is due by Wednesday, October the 7th. Again, make sure that only one of you sends me that message in Schoology. Part 2 is the actual project itself, wherein you're going to write out your plan. This is the longest section of the entire project. That's why it's not due until October the 16th, so you have time to get this done. So it gives you 9 days, okay? In this particular part of the project, you're going to make sure you write a hypothesis, what you think will happen. So if you did, let's say, for instance, one of these science projects of do different brands of popcorn leave different amounts of unpopped kernels, okay? Maybe you say your hypothesis that Redenbacher leaves the largest amount of unpopped kernels versus, let's say, store-bought Kroger brand, okay? That would be a good hypothesis to your question. Making sure you have a list of all your materials. So if you're going to use different brands of something, you got to list all the different brands. You got to list down whatever materials you're using for measuring. So if you're going to use rulers, if you're going to use measuring cups, things like that. You have to also identify your independent, dependent variables and your control variables. You have to list at least 3 control variables. Next part's the hardest part, is writing out the procedure. That means your step-by-step directions on what you're going to do. It might be easier that you actually, you can videotape yourself doing this, or you can take pictures of your procedure. That might be easier than writing everything out. because eventually you can actually use this in your presentation. Yes, there will be a presentation at the end of this, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, if you want to take pictures of your steps instead of writing everything out, or if you want to do video, that's totally up to you. Make sure you remember to repeat the experiment. Again, more steps lead to more accuracy, more reliability. You will then submit this into Schoology, and you're actually going to submit this in the template provided. So that is actually here in Schoology where it says Science Inquiry Project Template. When you open it up, okay, again, you will notice you have to put your partner's names, okay? You'll put all your information here: hypothesis, variables, materials, and procedure. If you're going to do a video, you're just going to put a link to your video here. If you're going to do pictures, you'll just put your pictures here. And then this is where you stop and it gets checked by me. The reason why I have to check it first is to ensure that you are safe and that it is a project that you can actually do in a reasonable amount of time. I want to make sure that everything goes well according to plan, and if I can't see your plan, then there's no doing a plan. The last part of the entire project is right here, and that is actually doing the experiment and collecting data and creating a table and graph. So let me go back to the directions. So here, project 3 is you'll complete the experiment. Again, include videos or photography. That'll help you in the end with your final presentation. You will make a graph of your data. It can be any type of graph you want, whether it's a pie chart, whether it's a bar graph, a line graph, whatever you need for it to be. You'll also give a summary of what you observed, what data. So again, start with the following phrases: I observed, I measured, I calculated. That'll all go in your conclusion. Finally, this is the part where you will not submit anything because this will lead into part 4. So the idea is to have your project, actually the experimentation, done by November the 6th, because that way you can start working on your visual aids and your presentation, okay? With that being said, they should say presentation start. So Friday, November 6th is when the visual aid's done. This can be any way you want to do that. You can do this on trifold poster board. You can do it on regular poster board. You can do it on Google Slides, Prezi, Adobe Spark. Make a brochure of it. The more pictures you have and visuals, the better your project's going to be. And last but not least, on Tuesday of November 8th, you will present your presentation. It may not be in front of the entire class. It might just be in front of me. It could be in front of other teachers. We're going to just see how this works when it comes to COVID. It might be in front of the entire class or a small group of people. And we'll start those presentations on Tuesday, November the 8th. So that's pretty much your project in a nutshell. If you have questions about it, I may not be in the classroom or right there with you when it comes to this project. So if I'm not in front of you to ask questions, message them to me in Schoology. Again, most importantly is the partner. Again, you must have parent approval. If you decide working with a partner, I may have to call home to make sure that both your parents are okay with you two working together with the COVID conditions that are going on. Okay? Again, if you have any questions, send me a message and good luck.